Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are going really deep into the world of introversion.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that sort of quiet strength that's often like misunderstood in our super social world.
Hmm.
So we've got a ton of stuff, research, historical stuff, business examples, and even personal stories.
Oh, wow.
All lined up,
Okay.
ready to unlock some insights about what makes introverts tick.
I am so ready for this.
I am too. I think it's going to be really interesting. So, to set the stage, we live in a world that often seems to favor those outgoing types.
Right.
But, is that really the full story?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And you might be surprised by what we found. Like, did you know that in certain scenarios, introverts might actually be better leaders?
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, and they tend to be less swayed by, risky financial gambles. So there's like a whole universe of advantages to being an introvert.
Okay. I am intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So one of the first things that I noticed while prepping for this deep dive was this idea of the extrovert ideal.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we're almost programmed to believe that, you know, being super outgoing and super charismatic is like the key to success.
Well, and there's a historical context to that, too.
Oh, interesting.
Think about the early 20th century in the US. Society was shifting from, rural to urban, from farms to factories. Individual personality and salesmanship suddenly became super important.
So it's like all of a sudden everybody needed to be like a smooth talker to get ahead.
Exactly. And figures like Dale Carnegie, the How to Win Friends and Influence People guy,
Yeah.
he became hugely popular.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's interesting, though, because he actually started as like a shy farm boy who was terrified of public speaking.
Oh, wow.
His whole transformation almost embodies that whole cultural shift.
It's so fascinating how his own story feeds into this whole extrovert ideal thing.
Hmm.
He went from a shy farm boy to, the ultimate public speaking guru.
Right.
And it kind of makes you think, like, how much pressure did people feel to become someone they weren't just to fit into this, like, rapidly changing America?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about like individuals. This whole ideal was reinforced everywhere, even in advertising.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Early 20th century ads would prey on people's fear of being judged. They make you think everyone's scrutinizing your every move.
It's like you need this product to overcome social anxiety.
Yeah. It was a brilliant marketing tactic, but it also contributed to this idea that being anything less than flawlessly outgoing was a problem you needed to fix.
So basically, this extrovert ideal is pretty deeply rooted in our culture, even if we don't always realize it.
It is. And, while there's nothing wrong with being outgoing, it often overlooks the incredible strengths of introverts. And that leads to a lot of misunderstandings.
Totally. Like that whole misconception that introversion equals shyness.
Yes,
So for our listener, let's clear that up right away. Being an introvert isn't about being afraid of social situations. It's more about how you respond to stimulation.
exactly. Introverts tend to be more sensitive to their surroundings, to all that external stimuli,
Hmm.
lights, sounds, even social cues. And this sensitivity is actually rooted in biology.
Wait, really? So it's not just a personality quirk?
No, there's some incredible research on this, like Dr. Jerome Kagan's work with infants.
Oh, wow.
He found that some babies react really strongly to new stimuli. And guess what? These babies are more likely to become introverted later in life.
So they're just like wired to be more aware of their surroundings from the very beginning.
Exactly. Their brains process things more deeply, and they tend to prefer quieter environments where they're not constantly bombarded with input.
So it's not about being antisocial. It's just needing a different kind of space to feel comfortable and energized.
Right. It's like their internal world is just as vibrant and engaging as the external world, and they need that balance to thrive.
This might get a little technical here, but stick with this, listener. This sensitivity is actually linked to a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's
Yes.
like the brain's emotional control center.
Yeah.
And in introverts, it just seems to be an overdrive processing all that information.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. As if their amygdalas are picking up on all these subtle nuances that others might miss.
So does that mean that introversion is completely predetermined? Like we're just stuck with whatever our brains decide?
Not at all. Remember, we have free will.
Okay.
Think of it like a rubber band. Our genes set the baseline, but we have the ability to stretch beyond our comfort zones.
Okay, so even if you're naturally introverted,
Yeah,
you can still learn to navigate those social situations and even enjoy them.
absolutely. It's about understanding your own needs and finding ways to manage your energy in different environments.
This is already so fascinating and challenging, so many of those common misconceptions about introversion.
Yeah.
Okay, so to our listener, We're going to unpack so much more in this deep dive, including all those surprising strengths I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
But before we go any further, let's take a moment to explore one of the biggest advantages introverts have, especially in today's world: their capacity for deep thinking and creativity.
It's true. Studies show that introverts often prefer to work independently, and solitude can be a powerful catalyst for innovation. When you think about it, it makes sense. When you're not constantly surrounded by all that external input, your mind has the space to wander, to make those unexpected connections that spark original ideas.
It's like when everyone else is out there networking and brainstorming in these huge groups,
Right.
introverts are back in their quiet spaces, diving deep and coming up with those like game-changing breakthroughs.
Exactly. And this isn't just a theory, research backs it up. For instance, the Coding War Game study found that the top computer programmers actually preferred to work in quiet, private environments.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need serious focus when you're, writing code, solving complex problems. All those distractions would drive me crazy.
And this need for solitude isn't about being antisocial or disliking collaboration. Introverts simply need time to recharge, to process their thoughts and ideas before they share them with the world.
This makes me think about all those open plan offices that are so trendy these days. It must be so tough for introverts to get any real work done in those environments. I can barely focus with someone humming at the next desk over.
You're right to point that out. While open plan offices might encourage a sense of community, they can also be incredibly overstimulating for introverts, making it harder for them to concentrate and do their best work.
So to our listener, if you're working in an open plan office, try to carve out some quiet time for yourself. Maybe find a dedicated focus room, a cozy corner in the library, or even invest in some noise-canceling headphones.
Those can be lifesavers. Give your brain the break it needs to focus and be productive.
Speaking of things that can be challenging for introverts, let's talk about something that used to terrify me: public speaking.
Ah, yes, the dreaded stage fight.
Mhm.
It's a common fear even for extroverts, but it can be especially daunting for introverts who naturally prefer quieter settings.
I used to be so terrified of public speaking. Heart-pounding, sweaty palms, the whole 9 yards. I even forgot my name once.
I completely understand. It's a vulnerability that a lot of people share. But the good news is it's something you can overcome with practice and the right strategies.
It's funny because when I finally did start giving presentations, people would often comment on how calm I seemed.
Really?
Little did they know I was like dying inside.
It's fascinating how our internal experience doesn't always match our outward demeanor.
So true.
We might appear calm and collected on the outside while internally we're battling a storm of anxiety.
But here's the thing. Just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you're destined to be a terrible public speaker. There are techniques you can learn to manage that anxiety and channel your nerves into a compelling presentation.
Absolutely. And one of the most effective techniques is simply practice. The more you expose yourself to the situation that triggers your anxiety, the less power it holds over you.
It's like facing your fears head on. You're training your brain to recognize that the situation isn't actually as threatening as it feels.
Precisely. And there are other helpful strategies too, like really focusing on your message and connecting with your audience on a personal level. Using visual aids can also be super helpful for both you and the audience. These techniques can help even the most introverted speaker deliver a powerful and engaging presentation.
Remember all that talk about the amygdala, that brain region that processes emotions. It plays a huge role in anxiety and fear responses, including stage fright.
Yes, it's as if the amygdala is constantly sounding the alarm, sending out signals that something is wrong, even when there's no real danger present.
But the good news is we can actually train our brains to manage those amygdala-driven responses. It's about teaching our brains to recognize that the situation isn't actually a threat.
Yes, and that's where techniques like mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy can be incredibly helpful. They help us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings, which allows us to reframe our perceptions of stressful situations.
So to our listener, if you struggle with public speaking anxiety, know that it's not a sign of weakness. It's simply a reflection of your brain's natural wiring. And with the right tools and techniques, you can learn to manage that anxiety and become a more confident speaker.
Absolutely. It's about harnessing your strengths, understanding your triggers, and developing strategies that work for you. And remember, everyone experiences anxiety differently, so what works for one person might not work for another.
Now let's go back to those biological differences between introverts and extroverts for a moment. Remember we talked about the old brain and the new brain. The old brain seeks those immediate rewards, while the new brain is all about restraint and planning.
Yes, it's a helpful way to understand that complex interplay between different brain regions.
Well, it turns out that introverts and extroverts might actually differ in how sensitive they are to dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter that's associated with rewards.
That's right. This reward sensitivity theory suggests that extroverts' brains might be more attuned to that dopamine rush that comes with rewards, making them more driven to pursue them.
Which could explain why extroverts are often perceived as more outgoing, more risk-taking, more eager to climb that social ladder.
Precisely. They're more motivated by those external rewards, by that dopamine hit that comes with social recognition status and achievement.
Whereas introverts, with their less sensitive dopamine systems, might find those external rewards less enticing, less motivating.
It's not that they're immune to those rewards, but they don't experience them with the same intensity. Their motivation might come from other sources. Things like intrinsic satisfaction, a sense of purpose, or the joy of deep thinking and problem solving. Things that are more internal and less flashy.
And this difference in reward sensitivity can also influence how introverts and extroverts approach risk. Think back to that numbers game study. It showed that introverts were much quicker to learn to avoid those risky choices, even when they weren't being rewarded as much.
It's a great example of how introverts' brains are wired to be more vigilant, more attuned to potential downsides and negative consequences.
This study really flips the script on the whole go big or go home mentality, doesn't it? It shows that sometimes playing it safe, like introverts tend to do, can actually be the smarter move.
It certainly does. And it highlights that there's no one right way to approach risk. Both introversion and extroversion have their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to decision making.
This difference in risk perception can also play out in how introverts and extroverts approach relationships. But before we dive into that, let's take a detour and explore how cultural norms influence how we view introversion and extroversion.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle. The cultural context shapes why certain personality traits are valued over others and how those values influence our behaviors and expectations.
I was particularly struck by the insights from Asian American communities.
Hmm.
There's this fascinating tension between the emphasis on quiet contemplation and respect for authority, which often clashes with that Western ideal of the outgoing, assertive individual.
It's such a great example of the diversity of cultural norms. And it really highlights how these norms can shape our understanding of personality and social interaction.
In many Asian cultures, speaking up, especially challenging authority, is often considered disrespectful and disruptive. It's more about maintaining harmony, respecting the group, and not rocking the boat.
And this cultural emphasis on quietude and restraint can be totally misinterpreted in Western societies where assertiveness and self-promotion are often seen as essential for success.
I was reading about this Chinese-American student named Mike Wei. He was saying how he felt pressured to be more outgoing, more like his extroverted classmates. He even mentioned that he didn't think there was such a thing as a quiet leader.
It's a really common misconception, and it shows just how pervasive that extrovert ideal is in Western culture.
But we know there are tons of examples of quiet, introverted leaders who have achieved incredible things. Think about Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, even Rosa Parks. Their leadership styles were defined by their principles, their quiet conviction, and their ability to inspire others through their actions, not by being the loudest voice in the room.
Absolutely. They embody the concept of soft power, leading through influence, moral authority, and the power of their ideas, rather than sheer force of personality.
And this quiet strength, this ability to influence through subtle means, is deeply rooted in many Asian cultures.
You see it reflected in ancient philosophies like Confucianism, which emphasizes respect for elders' harmony in relationships and the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. It's about the long game, not quick wins.
And this cultural influence goes beyond leadership. It shapes communication styles, social interactions, even parenting practices.
Definitely. In many Asian cultures, children are taught from a young age to be respectful, to listen attentively, and to speak only when they have something important to say.
And these values are often reflected in their communication styles.
Yeah.
They might be less likely to interrupt, to dominate conversations, or to assert their opinions forcefully. It's not about being passive. It's about being mindful and respectful.
You've got it. And it's easy to see how these cultural differences in communication can lead to misunderstandings. In Western societies, someone who is quiet and reserved might be seen as shy, lacking confidence, or even disinterested, when in reality, that might not be the case at all.
It really highlights the importance of being aware of cultural differences and avoiding making assumptions about people based on their communication styles.
Couldn't agree more. It's about being open-minded, recognizing that different cultures value different traits, and understanding that quiet strength can be just as powerful as outward charisma.
So to our listener, if you're interacting with someone from a culture that values quietude and restraint, Try to be mindful of those norms. Avoid interrupting, listen attentively, and be patient. You might be surprised by the depth and richness of the conversation that unfolds.
It's about embracing different perspectives, expanding our understanding of what it means to communicate effectively, and recognizing that there's more than one way to connect with others.
So we've been talking about how cultural norms can have like a huge impact on how we see introversion and extroversion.
Right.
But what about when it comes to kids? How does this play out in like how we raise and educate children?
Well, that's a really important question. Understanding and nurturing the unique strengths of introverted children is so essential, especially in a world that often prizes extroverted traits.
And one of the biggest mistakes we make as parents and educators is labeling introverted children as shy.
Exactly. Shyness and introversion are not the same thing. Shyness is about a fear of social judgment, while introversion is about a preference for less stimulation. It's like comparing apples and oranges.
So instead of telling your child to like come out of your shell or be more outgoing, we need to be focusing on creating environments where they feel safe and comfortable being themselves.
Absolutely. And that starts with understanding their needs. Introverted children may need more downtime than extroverted children to recharge after, social interactions or stimulating activities.
It's like they're processing everything so much more deeply that they just need a little extra time to decompress.
Exactly. They might also prefer to spend time alone or in small groups, and they might be more sensitive to noise crowds and other forms of stimulation.
So as parents and educators, we need to be respectful of their need for quiet time and create a calm and peaceful home or classroom environment where they can just relax and unwind.
Yeah, and encourage them to pursue their interests and passions, whether that's reading, writing, drawing, playing music, building things, or spending time in nature.
It's about giving them the space and the freedom to explore what lights them up, without pressure or judgment.
Right. And when it comes to social situations, let's not pressure them to be someone they're not. Yeah. It's perfectly okay for them to be quiet and observant, and they don't need to be the center of attention to be valued and appreciated.
For our listener, can you relate to that?
Oh, for sure.
It's like a classic introvert-extrovert clash.
Yeah.
Where the introvert might need some quiet time after a big social gathering and the extrovert's still raring to go.
Mm-hmm.
But the key here isn't about one person being right. It's about understanding where each person is coming from and finding that compromise that works for both.
Exactly. And you can actually help introverted children develop their social skills by providing them with opportunities to interact with others in small groups or one-on-one
Yeah,
settings.
like play dates with one or two friends instead of huge chaotic parties.
Right.
We can also help them prepare for social situations by talking about what to expect, maybe even role-playing different scenarios.
Oh, that's a good one.
Teaching them how to start conversations and make small talk can also help build their confidence.
Those are great tips. And remember, even though introverted kids may not be as naturally outgoing as extroverted kids, they still need social connection and belonging just as much.
Absolutely. So let's make sure they have opportunities to connect with like-minded peers who share their interests and their values. It's about finding their tribe, those people who just get them.
Yeah, and speaking of education, introverted kids may also thrive in different learning environments than extroverted kids.
That makes sense. What kind of environments are we talking about?
Well, they might do better in smaller classes with more individualized attention from their teachers. They also might benefit from more hands-on, project-based learning activities that allow them to explore their interests at their own pace.
That just sounds so much more engaging than passively listening to lectures all day.
Right. And don't forget about group projects. Those can be especially challenging for introverted kids, so it's crucial to create a supportive and inclusive classroom environment where everyone feels comfortable participating.
It's all about making sure that every child, regardless of their personality, feels seen and heard and valued.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Now let's bring the focus back to adults for a moment. Remember how we were talking about the extrovert ideal and how it just permeates our society?
Yeah, this idea that like outward charisma, assertiveness, and sociability are the keys to success.
Well, this ideal can be particularly challenging for introverts who may feel like they don't quite fit in, like they have to constantly pretend to be someone they're not to be accepted.
It's like they're being told that their natural tendencies are wrong, that they need to be more outgoing, more talkative, more assertive to get ahead in life.
And this pressure to conform can be so stressful and exhausting. It can lead to feelings of self-doubt, inadequacy, and even shame.
It's like they're constantly second-guessing themselves and feeling like they're not measuring up.
Exactly. So it's essential for introverts to recognize that there's nothing wrong with them. Their quiet strengths are just as valuable as the traits that are often associated with extroversion.
It's about embracing who you are, understanding your needs, and creating a life that truly aligns with your values and your preferences.
I love that. And that might mean setting boundaries, saying no to social events that drain you, and prioritizing activities that recharge your batteries.
It's about giving yourself permission to say no to things that don't serve you
Yeah.
and yes to things that light you up.
Absolutely. And it might also mean seeking out like-minded people who appreciate and value your quiet strengths.
It's about finding your people, those who celebrate your introversion instead of trying to change you.
And remember, even though our world often seems to revolve around extroverts, there's a growing movement to recognize and celebrate the value of introversion.
I'm so glad to hear that. It feels like things are finally starting to shift.
They are, and this shift is happening not just in our personal lives, but also in our workplaces.
Oh, that's interesting.
How so?
Well, more and more companies are realizing that introverts bring a unique and valuable set of skills to the table.
Like what?
We're talking about deep thinking, creativity, problem solving, and attention to detail.
It's like they're the secret weapon,
Uh,
the quiet force behind so many successful businesses.
exactly. They're often the ones working behind the scenes, quietly tackling those complex tasks that require focus and concentration.
And yet they're also the ones who are often overlooked for leadership positions, despite their potential to be incredibly effective leaders.
It's true, but thankfully that's starting to change. Remember when we talked about Adam Grant's research on introverted leaders? He found that they were especially good at managing proactive employees because they were more likely to listen to suggestions and create space for their teams to shine.
Yes, they're the ultimate collaborators, creating environments where everyone feels heard and empowered.
Their ability to empower others and to create a collaborative and inclusive environment is such a valuable asset in today's world.
So to our listener, if you're an introvert, don't be afraid to embrace your strengths and let your light shine.
The world needs your unique perspective, your quiet brilliance, and your ability to think deeply and solve problems creatively.
And if you're an extrovert, take the time to appreciate and value the introverts in your life.
They're the ones who will listen to you patiently, offer insightful advice, and help you see things from a different perspective. They'll enrich your life in countless ways.
It's about recognizing that we need each other, that a world with only extroverts or only introverts would be a much less interesting and dynamic place.
Exactly. We need the quiet thinkers and the bold doers, the careful observers and the charismatic leaders. We need all of us working together to create a world where everyone can truly thrive.
That's such a beautiful thought. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of introversion, we want to leave you with one final question to ponder. In a world that constantly celebrates the loud and the bold, what are we missing by overlooking the quiet power of introverts?
Take some time to reflect on your own experiences, challenge your assumptions, and embrace the beautiful diversity of human personality.
And until next time, keep diving deep.